Hello and welcome to episode 296, I believe. I'll have to double check and edit it later. Of Sutton and Back Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And I want to start off, I guess, with college football playoff.
Yeah.
Well, we know next year's going to be 12 teams, and this year's 4. And it's hard to argue against any of the 4 this year. Although I would have preferred not to have so many repeat teams again. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, TCU lucked out and that they stayed in despite losing. And then USC shot themselves in the foot, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I watched the fourth quarter of that game, and they couldn't tackle me.
Mm-mm.
They looked terrible on defense. Absolutely terrible. And I get a lot of shout out to Caleb Williams for playing on one leg, because he looked like he was in a lot of pain, a lot of agony, and he was trying to do everything he could to bring him back.
But just couldn't overcome Utah. I mean, with Caleb Williams back next
Utah
year.
looked good. Utah looked good. Utah's defense was fired up.
Yeah. But Caleb Williams and USC will be back next year. And like you said, with the 12-team playoff, it's hard to imagine them not winning.
Yeah.
And
it's been interesting now to see if Utah would have been one of the teams in the 12-team playoff this year. And Kansas State. I figure those two would be in for sure the way they played.
I think so.
Yep. I watched Tulane UCF, so Tulane is the non-power 5 on the New Year's Day Bowl now.
Right.
They looked good yesterday.
And Michigan and Georgia just, shout out to both those teams who just put it on their, to win the championships. They both won by...
Who is the matchup? Georgia, TCU?
No, it's Georgia, Ohio State.
Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan, TCU.
Yeah. And as we talked off air, this would have been the first year. I'm sure there's been another year in my lifetime, but if it was only you vote 2 teams in for the national championship, if it was Georgia and Michigan, I don't think there would be a single argument in the country. It'd be a boring week of sports talk show. Because they were clearly the best teams all year.
It'll be interesting.
So who do you got? Today, obviously. We'll discuss it again, before we get to the actual games, I'm sure.
Stetson Bennett is like a New England Patriot. I mean, you don't think he should, but he will. So I think they'll win. They'll win that game. And Michigan TCU is going to be a really good game.
It really is. That's the most interesting. I think,
That is the most interesting game. That's the most even game.
And then I assume we both think Georgia, the SEC, will win it all, most likely. Right?
Yeah, I think if they stay healthy, I mean, they look to be the best team in the country. And they've got a lot of depth. And, I'll be curious.
Now, of the 4 teams, if there was... Are you rooting for TCU?
Yeah, I'm going to root for TCU just because, to me, they're the biggest underdog, and they're also a Big 12 team. That's why I'll root for them.
Yeah. Because I'm sure they have the worst odds to win it all.
I would think so, even though they're 3.
Yeah.
I think there's so much Big 10 bias that I think Ohio State would be the favorite if it came down to those 2 teams.
Agreed. Well, before we tackle NFL, do you want to swerve to your baseball real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching. The winter meetings start this week. There'll be some trade activity. Aaron Judge. Now the story is he'll probably get a 9-year deal. But I gotta tell you, I mean, he's made his not hitting home runs.
Yeah.
And he's got a short porch in right field in Yankee Stadium and a short porch in left. And to go to San Francisco, which is tough to hit home runs in, I don't think it's a good move for him. So I would say that.
And 9 years.
The stadium's a little bit better, but if he wants to be in California, but I would say you almost have to sign with it. It makes most sense if wants to continue being a prolific home run hitter and slugger. You play in the ballpark that makes that possible.
Yeah, and he's also playing in, one of the few baseball teams that still registers worldwide, right?
Oh yeah.
Not that the Dodgers don't, and probably the Giants don't, but I mean, the Yankees are still the Yankees. Like,
they are. They're one of the most well-known brands in the world.
So, and I know obviously, I mean, taxes are bad in California and New York, so you're not like going to Texas or Florida. So you're not saving you're not saving a bunch of tax money. Yeah, like you said, I feel like you go down as a Yankee legend. You never pay for a drink or a dinner, probably in the state of New York, which is a great restaurant and drink place anyway.
And you get a monument out in the outfield when you're done.
A monument when you're done, and like you said, you got 2 short porches to continue to do what it is you do best. So.
And defensively, it's an easy right field to play.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just doesn't make sense to go anywhere else unless he is either tired of New York and wants to go home to California, or he's tired of the Yankees. But I don't know. You're the guy.
Yeah.
And he stood up to the New York media. I mean, he's been able to handle that. So kudos to him.
Yeah. But again, obviously, we always root for people to do whatever they want that makes them happy. So if that's, going there, it just seemed like legacy-wise, like, a couple more years of this, and you said you got a statue as a Yankee. And that's pretty phenomenal.
That's the gold standard. I mean, Ruth Garrett, that's the gold standard.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of happy, which makes me unhappy, Brian Reynolds has decided he wants to leave the Pirates, which I don't blame him. The Pirates' winning percentage with Brian Reynolds is .386.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see him wanting to play somewhere else. They've offered him to make him the highest paid player in Pirate history. But I guess the number of years they're tying it to doesn't equate to what the market value would be.
Not surprisingly.
So they've got him for 3 more years under control. Will they keep him? Probably not. They've had a lot of offers for him last year. I would assume they'll have a lot of offers for him now. He led the team in runs scored, RBI, on base percentage, and home runs. He's nominated for Gold Glove year before last. I mean, I hate to see him leave, but again, I guess I'm to the point where I'm used to it. And I don't blame him for wanting to play on a better team.
No. I mean, the Pirates definitely would have been regulated, or what is that, regulated? Where they send you down, if that was possible?
Relegated.
Relegation,
no question. In fact, they might be relegated all the way down to Class A by now.
Yeah. And again, you hope they get, 3 of the top 10 prospects from some good organization, and then you have hope again, and
then you hope that the prospects can play.
Yeah.
And the prospects are suspects. That's what we call them. So, before we switch to the NFL, I got a shout out to Team USA. They made it to the round of 16. We talked last week that they would advance for the round of 16. And when you watch a team like the Netherlands, I mean, every goal they scored was a thing of beauty. And the goal that the U.S. scored was actually scored by the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So, but, I am encouraged. They did make movement. Now the next World Cup's in the U.S. We'll see. Maybe they make the round of 8 next time. I'm still not expecting them to be a Final Four team in the World Cup or, any better than that, but we'll see.
Okay, well, I'll give my soccer thoughts. And I am not disparaging any of the men's teams, not the coaching, not the players, not the fans. But the first World Cup the U.S. played in was 1930. We're one of the largest countries in the world. We need to stop talking about men's soccer like we're introducing a new speak of technology to old folks' home. Like, there's no, morality. There's no, good job, Tiger. We just got, just stop. We got to start talking to them like they're Detroit or Oklahoma. They're a bad team, because that's what they are. Like, we no more kid gloves with this team, for me.
Okay.
Like
I said,
yeah.
The best athletes are not playing soccer.
No, and again, I'm not disparaging.
It's going to be the status quo. It's going to be the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Right. And like I said, I'm not disparaging the players or anybody else. It's just I need the national media to stop pretending like soccer was invented 2 years ago and the USA just found out about it. Like you can fit most of the countries that win inside of Texas. Like even if our best athletes aren't playing, we have more than enough to choose from. So just treat them like, a team that's been playing for a century in the World Cup in one of the largest, most powerful countries in the world. And not like your grandmother that just got a new iPad. That's all.
Okay. All right, let's go NFL.
All right.
I'll start off. I want to talk about the Jets were down big.
Yeah.
And they had a chance to pull it out, and they had
two great shots.
They were down within first and goal and couldn't get it in. It looked like a mix-up on a pass play and a couple of runs that got stuffed. And then a dropped touchdown on the first possession. Then the defense came in and got the Vikings out in 13 seconds. 3 plays, 13 seconds. Got the ball back, moved down, throwing in the end zone again, and threw a pick on the 4th down.
After almost throwing a pick on 3rd down, yeah. And again,
I like this Mike White guy, and I think that the Jets are going to make the playoffs, and they got a better chance to win with Mike White playing quarterback than anybody else they have.
Oh, without a doubt.
But their defense is stellar.
I do have to say, though, on the call where Berrios dropped the ball, you got Garrett Wilson, who I know you're using his decoy. You got Elijah Moore, and you got Corey Davis. I'm not throwing to Berrios.
No, but Garrett Wilson had run the wrong route to Pat played before.
Yeah, well, it looked like he fell down and didn't get to this spot, yeah. Or something happened, yeah. But maybe I put Elijah Moore in that situation, your other first-round wide receiver from 2 years ago, or Corey Davis, a first-round wide receiver who was having a really nice game. I'm trying to get the ball in the hands of somebody that, it's probably going to be better at making a catch, let alone a contested catch.
But this is your sure-handed punt returner, too.
Yeah.
So, there's no excuse for him to drop that ball.
No, there's not.
He had it, and then as he was going to the ground, he just kind of lost it.
Yeah. But
so that was a game. I was very interested in that game. Again, I'd like when the Steelers win, but I would have been just as happy if they lost. Because, again, at this point in time, I'm playing for draft picks. And I would rather pick 1 through 8 than 9 through 16.
And I think the other fear as a Steeler fan is that, and I'll say the nicest thing I can possibly say about the man is Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator. He's Chili's, as we talked about off air. It's a professional restaurant. You can eat a meal there. It's a national chain. But that's not as good as you can do in any city. It's just not.
No, and you're not going to go home and write a blog about the great meal you had at Chili's.
No. And eventually,
how was your dinner? You're going to say, all right, it was Chili's.
It was Chili's, yeah. And that's the best thing I can say about Matt Canada. But as the offensive line gels a little bit, which I think they would do with any offensive coordinator. And Kenny Pickett finally getting a lot of reps and snaps is looking a lot better. And a much easier schedule. There's a good chance the Steelers end up at 9-8 or 8-9 or somewhere along that spot, especially with Lamar Jackson's out next week and they play Baltimore twice. I just don't want to see the same team come back with the same coaches and the same coordinators because I don't think that's going to be a positive. Again, with the 16th pick in the draft, yeah.
Nor do I.
But Kenny Pickett has been pretty good the last couple of weeks.
He's shown a lot of progress. He's exactly what we said that we weren't getting. We wanted a decisive quarterback that could throw guys open and could move around, and that's what he's been. Yeah,
and he hasn't turned the ball over, I think, in 3 weeks.
Nope.
And Pat Freiermuth is pretty awesome.
Yep. And Najee Harris is running really hard. I like the way he looks right now too.
Yeah. There's a lot of positives. It's just there's a few things that if they don't change, you're not helping the Steelers move forward. So it's one of those eh. But in a brighter note, the Bears lost today to the Packers. So
and
blew a lead. So that Steelers second round pick that they own from the Bears looking pretty nice.
And Aaron Rodgers still owns the Bears.
Yeah.
We get two really good games on late today. Right now, we've got the Bengals and the Chiefs.
Yes.
And we have the Dolphins and the Niners.
Who lost Jimmy G.
And Brock Purdy came in and led him down the field for a touchdown. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on.
And special shout out to the Eagles, who just put it on the Titans today.
You know, I could see, if I was going to bet right now, I could see an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl.
Yeah. And again, the Eagles have talent all over the field, and I don't know why I keep doubting them, but they look really, really good. And if you beat a Titans team, knock the doors off a Titans team, because that Titans team is a well-coached team with Vrabel. You usually don't blow them out. Even good teams don't blow them out. But, you know, Philly can run the ball, throw the ball.
Teams, shout out to the Hard Knocks Detroit Lions.
Yeah. Destroying Jacksonville.
Big win today.
And they added, you know, Jamison Williams is active now. I don't think he did anything today, but that's their first round wide receiver.
Yep.
So that's a pretty big deal.
They've got a lot of weapons on offense.
Yeah.
And their defense is starting to play fairly decent. So I mean, I like what. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I sure like watching them.
Yeah. And I think anyone that has one of their fantasy players is pretty happy most weeks, which is, you know, part of what makes football great now.
Yeah, and Jared Goff looks to be the player that was drafted early on.
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time. He still can be Jared Goff, but he looks much better than he's ever looked as a Ram.
Oh, yeah. Well, except he did go to the Super Bowl with the Rams, I suppose, right? And they lost.
I would say they went in spite of him.
Exactly. Well, yeah. It's hard to argue that. Today was Deshaun Watson's first game. Got a giant boo from a standing boo, which was nice to see.
And didn't really put up any offensive points.
No, but I was thinking he hasn't played football in like 2 seasons, right?
Years.
2 years, yeah.
700 days.
700 days. So, you know, the rust was going to be there regardless, but, you know.
But he's playing against a team that was 1-10-1.
Yes. The Houston Texans.
So I can't give him a pass on that one. If there was any team you wanted to bring him back to play against, that would have been the team.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Well.
With Cowboys tonight against the Colts, I don't expect that to be much of a game.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, is right, yeah.
It definitely shouldn't be. But
I look forward to watching this whole 49er Dolphin game and flipping back and forth between that and the Bengals and the Chiefs. I now think, you know, with Lamar Jackson being hurt and the Bengals playing the way they are, I'm not going to be surprised if the Bengals win the division.
it's, yeah. Well, the Ravens have been a little bit weird all year, right?
They have been really weird all year.
Like I know they've won 7, now 8 games. I think they're 8-5 now, 8-4.
Yeah, they won 10-9 today against the Broncos.
Against the Broncos, but Lamar has been, you know, either MVP worthy or kind of not there at all. All their running backs are hurt. All their receivers are hurt again, and their defense isn't the Baltimore defense. Although they played the Broncos today, so they look more like the Broncos or the Baltimore defense, but they're not. Yeah, I think Cincinnati's the most talented team in the AFC North.
No question. And Buffalo's been shaky. I mean, I thought Buffalo was a dominant team, but they look like Jekyll and Hyde to me.
Yeah, they do not look like the killer squad, not at all. And Josh Allen is, you know, we talked about at the beginning of the year, like, he was the predetermined MVP before the season started, right?
Before he started giving the ball away.
Before he started giving the ball away. Like, this was, I mean, the world had sort of decided this was Josh Allen's year and the Bills' year. And granted, they are 9-3, so take that for what it's worth with a plus 124 point differential. So they're not, and they've won their last 3 games. So they're not terrible by any stretch, but.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And despite losing today, the Titans are in a division where they're still 3 games up on the Colts. 3 games up on the Jags, and 10 games up on Houston. So they're going to make the playoffs regardless.
Yeah. And nobody wants to win the NFC South.
No, they do not. I mean, I wonder what the lowest
was tied with the Buccaneers. Now, Buccaneers and Saints play tomorrow night. So the issue is, can the Bucs finally break through and beat the Saints?
I hope not, because I would love to see that. That means the Saints, the Bucs, and the Falcons would all have 5 wins, and that's pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's very terrible.
But it's always fun when one of those teams is in. And then again, we watched. The Broncos were really not a good team this year.
No,
and continue not to be.
And they really have mortgaged their future.
Yeah. But as we watched Deshaun Watson play today, I guess there is a chance that, which trade will be the worst trade.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine because those Broncos right now, they keep losing. And it looks like it's going to be a top 5 pick for the Seattle Seahawks, who might even sneak in and make the playoffs. Now, granted, they are losing right now to the Rams somehow.
And Houston's going to win the number 1 pick.
Oh yeah,
plus their Browns pick, which would be a top 15 pick.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah,
it's a good place to be. And then I guess to finish out, just because we talked about them in the beginning, but the Vikings are clearly the number 2 team in the NFC right now, at 10-2. But we still don't like them, right?
No. Like I said, like we talked about, they remind me of that Steelers team that was 11-0 and finished up 11-5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who they remind me of. They just, I don't know, they're underwhelming.
Underwhelming, and yet they sit at 10-2, 2 games ahead of any other team for the 2 seed. And then I guess the next best team is technically Dallas with 8 wins, and Dallas is going to come. They can't have the 2 seed because they're not going to win their division, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, exactly.
But scrolling through them, if you look at what the Vikings did, they beat the Packers, who played terrible to start the year. They got stomped by 20 points to the Eagles. They snuck by the Lions. They snuck by the Saints. They beat the Bears by a touchdown. They did beat the Dolphins. I guess that's their one good win, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and they beat the Bills. I forgot they beat the Bills. And the Patriots. Okay, well, who knows? Maybe they are good.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I'm still not impressed.
But this is the rest of their schedule this year. They've got the Lions, the Colts. They're home for the Giants. They play Green Bay in that late week, so who knows if Rodgers even play. And then they play at the Bears. I mean...
Hey, I'm going to pick my Lions to beat them next week.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be shocked if they won, let's say, 4 of the last 5 games, end up 14-3.
I would not be shocked.
That's not impossible. And that might be the second best.
Like I say, it's just a weird year. They're weird the same way Buffalo's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess as we get to wrap up, have you had any food moments this week?
Any food moments this week? I did.
No.
I had an amazing breakfast bowl in Columbia, South Carolina, at a restaurant called the Streusel Cafe.
Okay.
All right, so our Barnyard Buster we used to love at TJ's?
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I had. I had, the bottom layer was a biscuit. Then there were grits. And the grits were good. Then hash browns. Then gravy. Then eggs. Then cheese. Then gravy. And about 5 pieces of bacon all chopped up.
Wow.
And it was outstanding. It was really good. Like if I went back, I would have ordered that. And they had some interesting things on the menu, but that was amazing. And I wasn't hungry until about 7 o'clock that night.
Yeah, I was like, you eat biscuits. Biscuits and gravy are one of those old-timey farm meals that it's like, eat this now and come back at 6 o'clock when the sun goes down. And
yeah, that was good. And we went to the original Piggy Park.
Okay.
Which is, I like the pork at Piggy Park, but everything else is okay. But Piggy Park's not, it's one of those things where my mind remembers it being better than it really is.
Of course.
But I did enjoy the pork. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
But the breakfast was outstanding.
Yeah. Well, I have not had any food moments this week. And I think my entertainment movement, besides sports, obviously, would be a show we've talked about before, but since I have Paramount Plus again to watch football on the weekends, I can sign up for it for this time of year. I've been watching season 3 of Evil.
I like Evil.
It's a really entertaining show.
I haven't seen. I have to get back and watch season 2 of Evil. I watched season 1 of Evil, and I really liked it.
Yeah, it's.
And then they switched it, took it off. It was on CBS, and they took it off, and it was only on Paramount or whatever it was on.
Yeah, because these last few episodes we've watched, they do a lot of swearing, and it's got a lot, even more. I mean, it was never like a family show by any stretch.
Right.
But they're just full on. The censor is gone. But for people wondering, it's the church has set up a group with a priest, a scientist, and a psychologist, and they sort of investigate, evil, I guess, right? Or perceived evil.
Yeah, evil would depend if it's if there could be an explanation for it, I guess is how I would put it.
Yeah. And then there's obviously, larger, big plots going on and other things along those lines. But I find it to be a very unique show and very entertaining show. So.
Is the squirrel guy in there that was kind of like the devil?
He still remains, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, if I was to complain about the show for people watching, I think they need to do a better job of making him seem less like, who's that old-timey villain with the curly mustache? Like, less like him in every scene.
Yeah, he's not threatening enough.
No, and he's also, it seems like he's not good enough at his job to get away with what he gets away with.
That's true. All right, I'm going to have to go back and start watching that again.
Yeah, because I'm trying to plow through season 3 before I cancel Paramount. 'Cause there's really nothing on that network besides, there's one or two things I'll watch here and there.
Are you going to watch the prequel to Yellowstone?
The one with Harrison Ford or the other one? Or no? Because there's two.
I guess the one with Harrison Ford, but isn't there a prequel with Sam Elliott?
Yeah, there's an 1880-something, and then there's a 1920-something. And I think the 1920 is Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And then Mustache Guys in the 1800s one.
Okay, I thought the one I was watching was 1823.
Yeah, now there's a 1900. Yeah. Yeah, now the Helen Mirren Harrison Ford one is the 1920s.
Okay.
And that seems to be the one people are pretty excited about. But I suppose you should watch.
I think you might be out Jimmy G for the year.
Yeah. That's what it's looking like. Poor Jimmy G. Pour one out for Jimmy G.
Yeah, because he looks like he can make some real money, too.
Well, they had just had
just like last year, where he has to have surgery again, and you don't know what you're going to get.
And they had just published an article saying that the 49ers and Jimmy G said that if they could come back on the right circumstances, which I assume that means they have even more doubts about Trey Lance, who was their quarterback to start the year, who got injured in week 1, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just can't get it done. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so until next week, I'm Jason, and we'll talk to you soon.
Y'all take care and enjoy the Army-Navy game. Not much college football this week.